Hello and welcome. Another day in the Buddhist calendar has passed, being the full moon Uposatha. Uposatha, the lunar observance day, Buddhist holy day, called here in Sri Lanka Poya Day, where they particularly celebrate or hold reverently the full moon of each month. It is in fact a national holiday, whichever day of the week it occurs. Work closes down, much like we call a bank holiday in the Western countries of the world. The Buddhist calendar, based on the phases of the moon, the full moon and new moon, approximately every 15 days, and further divided by the half moons, we call quarter moons, represent our weeks, really. Our days are marked by the dawn, so just as it becomes light and one can see the lines on the palm of your hand by the naked visible light of the sky early in the morning, is approximately 20 minutes before sunrise, that we call dawn, and when we begin our day as monks. So as monks, this is our calendar, the phases of the moon, and the rising and setting of the sun, but more poignantly, the dawn of each day is the beginning of the following day and the end of the previous day. And by what better means is there to mark one's day if any convention is necessary, than by those that are provided to us by nature. No calendars are required other than that for living this monastic life. For me, various duties as a monk prior to lunar observance day, the Uposatha. We have robe washing, dyeing, head shaving, and in preparation for spending the day often with lay people, if we're living in a temple where people will be coming to visit, or just in contemplation, meditation as usual, but with emphasis on sila, and in a monastic community, that of listening to the recitation of the Patimokkha, our 227 Bhikkhu rules, which protect us. They don't bind us, they don't restrict us, but they protect us and assist, support us in our way of life in order to keep the main precepts, as all Buddhists, lay Buddhists, strive to diligently keep, those of not killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, or taking of intoxicants. I was invited the day before this Uposatha that has just passed to go somewhere with someone for something. What that place was, with whom and to do what, I wasn't sure. But as the invitation was for 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I thought that is a time when I'm free. It's normally I'll have my cup of tea or cold drink at that time, and a good time for talking Dharma with people if they're visiting me, or just maybe listening to Dharma myself. maybe to a Dharma talk that's been recorded on this platform from a monastery I'm familiar with, where I'm become accustomed to their teachings, practices, and have possibly lived and trained. So, it not being a morning invitation, those I do try to avoid, because they will often involve a lot of festivities revolving around eating, and I don't like to make that a primary interest in my life. Several courses of food. I like to eat just once a day at 9 o'clock after my alms round, in one bowl, in one sitting. I don't have starters, main course, sweet, side dishes. It all goes wherever I've been offered during the course of my alms round in the morning into my bowl. There is some selection process by me, because I need to ensure I have a nutritional diet, which is no problem here because I'm so well looked after, and then the rest can be distributed to others. But I like to just sit and eat once for the purpose of fueling my body and nutritionally for another 24 hours to aid my practice. So those morning functions that are quite popular here, I leave to the existing monastic sangha here, of which there are many monks who are appreciative of those events, as are the lay people too. And I am by no means criticizing those. They are an important part of the generation of saddha, faith in the Buddha Sasana, the Buddhist religion as a whole. Sometimes it isn't always people aren't always interested in maybe meditation, and they're not always interested perhaps in even listening so much to Dharma, but find great comfort and refuge in these practices, these holy practices of paying homage to the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, those of taking refuge in the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, and of taking precepts, the 5 precepts with a Bhikkhu. And this is often practiced on this day in the West and in these Buddhist countries, called Tisadana Panchasila, where you formally take refuge in the triple gem, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, and reaffirm your determination to keep the precepts. So in conjunction with this, these ceremonies are an important part to many Buddhists' lives, an important ingredients to their overall practice of Buddhism. But we all have appreciations of different aspects of the Buddha's teachings in their entirety, encompassed in sila, moral virtue, samadhi, meditation and wisdom, panya, as contained in the Noble Eightfold Path. We are establishing right view through our study and understanding of the Dharma and its practice. We're establishing right intentions by keeping sila, moral virtue, and trying to uphold right speech, keeping our actions, including all actions of body, speech and mind, within the boundaries of those precepts, and practicing ways of living that are wholesome and causing no harm to ourselves or others, so right livelihood, putting in as much effort diligently as we can to all of this, the practice, and that of meditation, being mindfulness, sati, samasati, and samadhi, samasamadhi, practicing meditation. In the West, we often come to Buddhism, find the teachings of the Buddha having first been acquainted with meditation. We may go to a non-religious, non-Buddhist meditation group or course, or read something or see something on YouTube where we are begin to develop an interest in the benefits we can have of just sitting quietly, allowing our body to relax, our minds also to settle and become calm, and appreciate just the peace and tranquility that comes from that inactivity, that seclusion from our ordinary activities of daily life, which largely include a considerable amount of trying to distract ourselves from what is going on by forms of sensual stimulation, entertainment, eating, and doing many things that we can, and without any criticism, very happily enjoy, but are not really constructive to appeasing and settling and reducing sensual desire, but more inclined towards fueling that for future need, which is a superficial need, more a wanting, a craving, a thirst for that cannot be satiated, cannot be satisfied, that continually going out through our sense doors or windows of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, to find something, bring something in to try and satisfy us, to try and reduce what we might refer to as boredom, or any form of, or distract us from any slight even discomfort. In that, when there's often silence between two people, they will fill it with some form of sound by way of speech, speaking really just for the sake of that, because it can be quite difficult to bear. Like that, just silence like that for a moment or two can be quite difficult to appreciate as what it is, a nice, quiet time with your friend, without having to make unnecessary conversation. And we learn through meditation to appreciate that quiet time, firstly alone, but also to develop the skill of understanding and wisdom through that practice of being able to be more satisfied and content with what we already have within us, which is a natural state of relaxation in our physical bodies, and a natural state of peace, tranquility, calmness in our thinking brains, minds, that is already there and present, like a still pond. But we, however, in the context of our environment, are continually stirring up with a big spoon to froth up the waters and bring the silt from the bottom of the clear water into the clear water, murking what is there, stirring it all up. And meditation is about allowing all of that to just settle, putting the spoon down, settle, and the water to become clear, so we can see clearly what we do have, which is naturally peace and calm and relaxation. We see this clearly. That is what vipassana means, seeing clearly. So my mystery invitation prior to Vipassana was to, as it turned out, I was taken into a nearby village to a big gated property, very attractive looking and brand new, with gardens being finished off, newly landscaped. A big swimming pool, huge swimming pool, very beautifully surrounded by tiles and filled with the water, all ready to go. It was very hot. I thought, well, I could just jump in there. But of course, this isn't what we do. Yes, we don't often get the opportunity to go out in the afternoon as monks, because we tend to stay within our places where we live, our monasteries, or where I live alone. And unless we have reason, like for instance where I was going, there was a reason, an invitation. Unless there's purpose, we don't go out wandering unnecessarily around town or villages or even for a walk, because it is considered inappropriate, it's unnecessary for us to go wandering without good reason, usually for health reasons, visiting a doctor or a hospital or something, or to get something, medicine, have it purchased for you. We don't go out in the afternoon unless it's absolutely necessary. But when there's an invitation, then it's perfectly acceptable. So it was a good opportunity for me to see my surrounding environment at a different time of day. And it is quite different, because normally I go through the local villages and town very early in the morning, just after dawn, at about 6:30, when businesses are not open. People are just getting ready for their day's work and are, to my good fortune, ready and available to offer me dana, put food in my bowl. But this is prior to all of the shop fronts being opened, the shutters coming up and the market stalls being in place. Some of the early market stalls are there, but most things are not gearing up at that time of the day. So it's very different when I go through the village and town in the afternoon, and interesting for me to see. I feel a bit like a tourist, which of course is what I am. And I arrived at this splendid newly built house, steps, and they had water out to, I say rinse my feet. I don't like the term washing my feet, but you know what I mean. It's a cultural thing. They do that here, they do it in Thailand. When you arrive, they pour water on your feet, and they do give them a good wash and dry them. And I'm glad, because these were all beautifully new laid floors. And of course we take shoes off in Asia, always when entering a house. But if you've been walking around in bare feet in other places, you don't know how clean your feet are. So we were taken upstairs, or I was taken upstairs to what is I don't know if you know what this is, a mezzanine floor, so a raised floor but with glass open frontage to the downstairs. So very voluminous, beautiful, almost like a temple structure in itself. Very modern, beautifully well constructed building with lots of light, airy space and glass, and being new and unfurnished as yet, the way I'd like it to stay if it was a place where I was living, very minimalist, very beautiful indeed. So I thought, well, this is interesting. But there was a chair laid out for me to sit with. They always put a white cloth wherever you offered a seat here to sit on. This isn't the custom everywhere. Normally when I'm in India, I take what is called a sitting cloth with me to put on someone's chair for me to sit on, to protect from me getting their nice seats or whatever dirty. Not so much me, but we protect the robes always. So we don't want to get our robes dirty from sitting somewhere, or get someone's place dirty from us sitting. So we always put a cloth down, but that's not necessary here, because they lay out a beautiful white cloth always on wherever you are expected to sit, which is normally quite a, by my standards, a throne-like arrangement. Much like this here is for me to sit on to give a Dharma talk, but I prefer to sit on the floor. And as there's nobody here, that's okay. If there's someone visiting me here, I still sit on the floor, but I have two mats, and these additional layers mean that if they sit on the floor with one mat, they'll feel comfortable, because people who are observing the Vinaya strictly like the monk to be raised above them. But I don't think personally that needs to be taken so literally, but to please everyone, I always make sure I've got 2 layers, or even put my sitting cloth down, and that's another layer. So it is kind of done by layers. You'll see when you look at the monks in order of seniority up on the asana, the seated area in temple situations, you can look at underneath them, you'll look at what they're sitting on, you might not be able to identify the layers that are involved to create this well, it's a convention, isn't it? But it's all part of respect to the Sangha. Not who's sitting there, the robes, the Sangha, and how long they've been ordained in that position, and how therefore representative they are of the Sangha. After all, people have taken refuge and are paying homage to the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, not the individual monks in the robes. And it turned out, because I sat and was offered some water, and a drink later came as well, with a nice cup of tea, black tea, I was pleased to see, because I don't drink milk in the afternoon, it's considered food. I said, good, I said, this is nice, thank you for the invitation, what is it you'd like me to do? Or would you like me to talk? And they asked very nicely if I could say prayers and good luck for this new building. And I thought, okay, so this is interesting. I said, are you going to be living here? And they were they were the builders, in fact, who'd made this, or one of them was the builder who'd made this house, built it very beautifully, and it was going to be sold. And this is quite common, this is throughout Buddhist countries, and it's also not uncommon in Western countries or other situations either, that when something is newly constructed, there are various ceremonies. We have in the building industry what's called a topping out ceremony, I think it's called, when they lay the last bricks of a building, and various dignitaries come and people give speeches, and there are laying of foundation stones. You'll see them all over the place. Even the launching of ships, in the olden days, royalty would come up and smash a bottle of champagne on the hull of the ship and launch the new yacht into the ocean, metaphorically speaking, and this would go towards christening the ship, giving it a name and wishing it all good luck. And this is much the same as what monks do here in Asia and in other places, to represent that good wishes, blessings and good luck, and prayers is how it was phrased. But this is due to the convention of different languages we're using. I think it is true, it is their understanding also, and it is certainly my understanding, that what we're doing on these occasions is sharing with each other, because after all we are not going to be living in the house, but sharing with each other our good wishes for those who have constructed and built the house, to gain sufficient profit. After all, it is their livelihood. At the culmination or the completion of this building of the property, it has to be sold to another, and those people buying it, whom are making it their home, also benefit from the quality that's been, and the diligence and good work that's been put into making of the property, but also health and good fortune and a good future in the property, a long and happy future and life for all that those come to live there immediately from now and on into the future generations that may occupy that property. And this goes for all kinds of buildings. In India, I was asked, in fact, also even when people bought a new car, they would like to have this kind of blessing ceremony given. And at first I was a little averse to this, I might say, because it's after all just a car, and it doesn't represent to me anything tangible in Buddhist religion that should be revered in any way. In fact, you just need this as a vehicle to get from A to B. But when we look at it as just sharing our aspiration that all who use the car, journey in the car, have the benefit to be taken from A to B in the car, we do wish go well on their journey, arrive safely and happily. We're not praying, asking for any particular higher power to ensure that, but we are merely sharing our intentions, good intentions and good wishes, that that is the way it will be. And often mutual intention is what helps us arrive at a mutual goal. So for all beings, wishing that all beings are happy and well, if we are all wishing that all beings are happy and well, our mutual goal is that all beings are happy and well, and therefore we should all arrive happy and well at that destination, because we are all wishing it. This is where our 4 Brahma Viharas come into the practical sense of metta, loving kindness, karuna, compassion, mudita, joy for others, joy for the person who's bought or been given a new car, a new vehicle, built a new house or moving into a new house, has a new factory to run their business from, has built a new bridge to cross a river. Whatever it may be, we have joy for that attainment, that success in this convention of worldly life, because after all, we all wish to live comfortably and advance in society and advance in technology, and as civilizations have advanced over the ages in all other kinds of areas of our lives. But ultimately to be happy, and as long as this is our mutual wish, then mutually we all arrive at happiness together. So I have learned over these years of being a monk, when asked to do these things, to embrace it as an opportunity to bring everyone into the fold, to agree with each other why we're doing this, for our mutual consideration of good wishes for all who will be appreciating this car, house, bridge, ship, aeroplane, whatever it may be. But I thought it appropriate at the time, being prior to Uposatha, to give a little Dharma talk. In fact, often I found it appropriate to give a little Dharma talk when given the opportunity, because those opportunities are quite few and far between when you live alone in a country where you don't speak the language. So I had some people with a good understanding of English and considerable patience. So I took the opportunity to ask what their view was on the nature of giving blessings in this situation, and how that will affect future inhabitants, occupants, people living in the house, and themselves, the people who have built the house and are selling the house. And I thought it appropriate to tell them my own views, which are much as I've just spoken of, that we wish for all people to be happy, but also to reflect upon the very nature of this practice, the very nature of Buddhism, and being as these kind of ceremonies are very much partly a reflection, or I am partaking in them as being part of the Sangha, and therefore upholding the traditions of the Buddha Sasana, wherever it may be represented, and however it may differ culturally, I try to uphold local traditional aspects where they're not in conflict with anything I believe to be in line with the teachings of the Buddha and the practice of the Noble Eightfold Path. So this is a wholesome activity. It is a development of wholesome states of mind, a reduction of unwholesome states of mind. So however one sees it and understands it, it is that. It is better than, say, going to a nightclub and drinking vodka and listening to some kind of music for a night time. It is better to be given consideration to the good fortune of others and practicing such things as blessing houses, cars, bridges, factories, aeroplanes, ships, whatever. So there is nothing in contrary to the teachings of Buddhism in those activities. But what is very relevant, I think, to know and to understand, and what I wanted to explain to the people that I had the opportunity to have listening to me, and now will share with you, was that, of course, people moving into the house are not there at the moment to hear, be coming along in the future, to hear of these good blessings. So I'm not saying prayers to devas, to gods, to higher powers for their good fortune, but I'm sharing these aspirations and good wishes with the other people whom I'm with, that they are able to come in to a new home and also practice in accordance with the Noble Eightfold Path, Sila, Samadhi, Panya, and primarily build foundations of their lives in Sila, moral virtue. Now, as I pointed out to the developer, the builder of the house, that such a beautiful house that we were sitting in and enjoying the coolness of in the heat of the afternoon, with its beautiful shiny floors and all of the glass surroundings, would be no good if he hadn't put it on very firm foundations. And in fact, in any construction of this nature, a lot of the work goes on before the first levels are even laid, before the first bricks or blocks are even laid, because the ground has to be prepared. It has to be dug out very deeply. Foundations have to be laid. Many tons of concrete have to be poured into the ground to make a solid basis for the building structure to be sat upon. Also, lots of infrastructure, drainage, wiring channels, and all of this has to be incorporated. It's a lot of work. In fact, probably 2/3 of the overall project work could be contained within the preparation, and the final third is just literally building the bricks and mortar on top of that, the final house. So a developer, a builder, has a very good understanding of the importance of foundations. Now, a good representation of karma would be, in terms of its immediate and literal sense, is if this developer or this builder had taken some shortcuts, not perhaps used the correct ingredients for the concrete being poured, or dug the trenches too shallow. Now, of course, this doesn't happen so much these days because there are rules and regulations and structures in place to check and survey and ensure that this doesn't happen. But even before that, we knew through our own understanding as people building a project that it is important, or we all know, even without technical knowledge or qualifications, that without solid foundations, without that being prepared properly, the building will not last for future generations. It will start to shrink, crack, break. It will not survive. It will not work. So we know the importance of solid foundations. So the new people coming in to the property have to also build their future on solid foundations, which are not in the literal sense of how the property will last for future generations to support many families over a long period of time as a result of the good karma of building the original structural foundations well, and not cutting corners. That is the literal vipaka. Karma is just actions, vipaka is the results of actions. So if you build good foundations, the property will last. If you build bad foundations, the vipaka, the results of that is the property won't last. But also, the people moving into the property, we are wishing their good fortune. So what we must also wish is that they are able to come in and build their own foundations of sila, have moral virtue, be able to live by way of the practice of the Noble Eightfold Path. Because it is this that will result ultimately. This karmic action, wholesome developing wholesome states of mind, reducing unwholesome states of mind, that will have vipaka, the results of those actions, of contentment, happiness, health and well-being, living in that property for generations to come. It isn't just on our good wishes, but in the hopes that they're coming into there under the umbrella of in this country, the Buddha Sasana, or in other places where these kind of ceremonies are carried out under other religious circumstances. It does suffice to say that most religions have, or all religions have, a code of moral virtue. And whatever one does in life, if one sticks to that code of moral virtue, wherever one lives, whether it's in opulence and luxury of a new beautiful luxury place with a swimming pool, or in a less luxurious house, wherever you may live, wherever you are, in whatever religious, cultural surroundings that are there, if you can keep to a code of basic moral virtue of doing no harm to either yourself or to others, then you will be able to live more a content way of life and develop happiness as a result of that contentment. Happiness is a symptom of contentment, whereas sadness is just the symptom of being discontent. We are discontent if we are not able to uphold the basic moral code of life, of being unable to see the benefit of doing no harm to ourselves and no harm to others. When we see the benefit in no harm and can apply that to our lives by keeping moral precepts of some form or another, we do reap the immediate benefits, the vipaka of that karma, those actions. And we all know that, don't we? So, these ceremonies are important in that respect. They're an opportunity to remember. And as it turned out, I didn't sit and chant for many minutes or hours. The often chanted is the Ratana Sutta, or the Blessing Sutta, the Mangala Sutta, the core sequence of traditional pujas that goes on in Buddhist temples. I thought it better, even though they had it beautifully set up the room with a Buddha statue, a rupa, with incense lit, candles or a light lit. They use a coconut oil with a wick here, flowers beautifully arranged. It was all very beautifully set up to do so. I asked repeatedly if they'd like me to continue talking and they could ask some questions. And at the end of our discussion of what I've just shared with you, was happy to offer them and to all future inhabitants of the new house blessings, as I would do ordinarily, for their good health, their good fortune, long lives, and also their circumstances being conducive to practice and assistance with their practice, and the ability to be able to become free from suffering if you're not in this lifetime, in the next, but to have future good rebirths and so on. So I did offer some blessings at the end which they were appreciative of too. And I hope that that wasn't too out of line with what they're used to here, but as I often say to people, there are also many monks here who can do all of those other things too, which keeps them occupied. And if I can impart a little bit from my own experience in different cultures from around the world, but applying the teachings of the Buddha in the context of the Noble Eightfold Path to whatever environment or circumstances I may be in, then I think it is very important, and always ask for feedback and certainly get positive feedback, that it is useful for others if I share that with them at the appropriate time and moment. And in this case, it was appropriate to remember that our own good virtue is what has arrived at this conclusion of this beautifully built property, which then will house many generations to come, whom are the heirs to their own karma, responsible for their own karma. And if living to a good code of moral virtue, will also benefit from many years of happiness in that home, that new home that they have been fortunate to acquire. So this was my little mystery trip the day before Vipassana, and being a monk living here alone, I was not with my fellow bhikkhus whom are in India. I'm in Sri Lanka, so I wasn't to have the opportunity to listen to the recitation of the Patimokkha as one would if you are in the presence of at least 5 other bhikkhus. No, 4 other bhikkhus, there has to be 5. I was able to reflect and consider my own keeping of all of those 227 precepts over the last 15 days since the last Vipassana. But we should all continually reflect each and every day how we are carrying on our lives in respect of this sila, this right intention, right speech, right actions, right livelihood, and how much effort we're putting in to keeping those precepts on a continually evolving basis. Because we do find, of course, as lay people, with the distractions that there are in ordinary lives, that occasionally there may be a transgression of 1 or 2 of those precepts. But they will continually evolve if you keep reminding yourself to keep the 5 precepts, keep taking Tisarana, refuge in the Triple Gem, the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, and Panchasila, reaffirmation of those 5 precepts. Because as you do that, you keep them for a little bit longer, and you see and can benefit from the rewards you reap from keeping those precepts, the direct results of the vipaka, the good karma you've put in place by keeping those good precepts. And this gives you encouragement to uphold them and keep them more firmly, not with a tight grip that becomes uncomfortable, but held gently out of appreciation for what you get back. So not rules to be reluctantly upheld, but rules to support you in happiness and contentment. This is how sila should be seen. So I think that will be hopefully something useful there for you to apply to your lives in all of your daily activities. If not, then just consider it as sound you've heard and diverted your attention away from something else that may have been a less wholesome way to spend however long this has been. So don't let it trouble you too much. Be happy and stay well. Until next time, Sukhi Hotu.